Okay, so we're going to get into our first project. We're going to be designing some tweezers. This is a great project because it's going to take us through some of those basic tools that we're going to use time and time again. So the first thing to know is that just navigating around, using that middle mouse button, you can move around, but if you want to pan or orbit, hold in Shift to move that around like that. Okay, so we're going to start with making a new design, and the best thing to do straight away is to save it, so Control S. And we're going to save that as Tweezers prototype, something like that. And that means that Fusion 360 can immediately start auto-saving, so that if it does crash, which it does from time to time, you don't lose everything. So, the basic workflow is always that you go from a sketch into bodies. So we're going to start with drawing a sketch. Most of my sketch tools are in this menu here. We're going to choose a plane, and see we've got this cube at the top here that tells us where we're looking. So let's choose that bottom plane there. We're looking at it from the top down, and I'm now inside a sketch, right? And you'll always know because you've got this green tick in the corner here. So we're going to start with creating the outline of our tweezers, and for this I want a center rectangle. You can see you've got all these different options, and those options even tell you how to use them. So a center rectangle, we're going to choose the center point, and already I've got a couple of dialog boxes. These are our dimensions. I want 20mm by 80mm. You just type them in, hit enter. And now we've got an enclosed shape, you know, because you've got yellow on the inside, and we've got our line around the outside. These lines here are construction lines. They're going to be really helpful later for specifying geometry without it actually being part of the design. So if that's the outline, we need the curve because we're going to use the flexibility of that PLA plastic to allow us to squeeze these tweezers shut. So I'm going to come across to arc, and what I want is a 3-point arc. You can see you start to snap to different parts of the grid. So snapping to that corner, and as I bring it out, it even snaps to when it's a half circle. Now, at the moment, I've got two different shapes. Now, I don't want to just bring out this whole block. I want to add some thickness to the arms. So what I'm going to do is use an offset. All right, so we're going to trace all the way around, but the fact that we have two different shapes is a bit of a problem because offsets only work on the one shape. So to get rid of that line, I can either make it into a construction line, or I can come up here for trim, and the shortcut for that is T. And that allows me to remove that geometry, which means that, again, we now have one big shape. So, using our offset tool, this is one we'll use all the time, O for offset, and now you can see you can add some thickness, and it's offset of -2, the minus is just telling you the direction, and now we've got our outline. What's really handy is that if we change these dimensions, that offset will still remain at 2mm. Now I don't want these connected at the end, so to close those off, I could use the line tool, but I can also come up to modify and click extend. And now you can see it extends that line to the nearest line. And again, I want to trim those out, T for trim, and now we've got white space, which tells us that it's no longer part of our sketch. So if I finish the sketch at this point, I've just got this drawing, it's on the bottom plane, and now we get to see how you create three-dimensional bodies. So you come up here, create, extrude, and again, this is a really common one, so it's good to give it its own shortcut, which is E. We've got lots of different options over here, but what we want is to bring that up to, let's say, 8mm. Awesome. The sketch is hidden. There's the profile still underneath. Turn off the bodies, and we can see where our body is coming from. From sketches, we create bodies. Bodies we can organize into components, and components can be assembled together, and we'll see how to do that a little bit later. Now, at the moment, my tweezers are meeting awkwardly at the corners. What's fantastic about Fusion 360 is that we don't have to start over because we forgot some feature. We've got this timeline down the bottom here. We're going to go back into my sketch here. So I'm going to right click on it, edit sketch, and as I make changes, they will propagate through my design as much as possible. Now, one thing we always want to do is make sure we're nice and zoomed in so we can see what we're doing. And what I want to do is just add a construction line 5mm from the end here. So I'm going to hit L for line, and then if I want to make it a construction line, I can click over here or hit X. Right, so X toggles it on and off. And I'm going to draw a line top to bottom. You can see it snaps to 90 degrees. And before we actually wrote in the dimensions, this time I can put them in after the fact. So here's sketch dimension, or D. Click on the point, and I can set that to 5mm. Right, now I want to add a line. I do want this to be part of my sketch, so I'm going to hit X to turn off the construction line, zoom right in. I'm going to start from the bottom of my construction line and come over somewhere to the edge here. You can see if I go to the middle, I get this triangle. That tells me I'm at the center point of that line. I want to come down a little bit because what I'm about to do is hit D for a dimension, select both of these lines, and now I can actually put in and specify an angle. I want 5 degrees. Right, now I don't want these parts to my design, so hitting T for trim, I'll trim those away. Right, coming down to the bottom, do the same sort of thing, but let's say I've accidentally put in, again, one construction line, put in a diagonal line. We've got all these constraints here. Right, so rather than drawing it again, what I can do is hit horizontal, vertical, come over here to our line, and now that's locked to being always horizontal or vertical, and it will go to the nearest of the two. Constraints can be really helpful, especially for finding tangents, but Fusion 360 is smart enough to snap a lot of them in, and you'll just recognize over time what some of these symbols mean. So again, hitting D for dimension, and I'll make that 5mm, and again, come over here. It's a construction line, it's dotted, so hitting X to change that again, and D for dimension to get 5 degrees. Trim, finish sketch, and you can see it's actually updated into our 3-dimensional model. It's really handy. Right, so heading back to our home view, there it is. Now in my original design, we had this interesting tapered edge here. So to do that, we're going to come over here and we're going to create a new sketch. It's quite a common thing to do, that we're going to create multiple sketches in the one design. Over to my tweezers, what I want to do is actually draw a new sketch on this plane here. So we're going to create sketch, and we can specify that it's on that side. We actually want to use the geometry of this shape. I want to go from this top corner to over here somewhere. But at the moment, it's not actually part of my sketch. So what I want to do is come over here to create, and we're actually going to project that geometry into our design, or P for project. Now we've got the whole body, or we just want certain parts of it. So I want this line, this line, this line, and you go okay. And now when I turn off the bodies, these are very firmly part of my sketch. We're going to put in a nice arc. So 3-point arc. Come over to maybe halfway, and again I'm waiting for that to snap. Yes, there it is, a tangent line symbol. So we've got this nice smooth transition down. Finish that sketch, and what's great is that now you can see how the sketch is still on the side. We can actually extrude, E for extrude, that profile through the design, and it trims out. So going the other way, we get join. We've got a few different operations that we can use, but we want cut. So go OK, and now I've got this lovely taper. Beautiful. Now the final step is to add some little pads for our tweezers to grip with. E for extrude, and we're going to go 1mm. And orbiting around, we're going to go E for extrude, 1mm. Awesome. The last step is now we've got our lovely 3D design, we can start modifying it to make it a bit more pleasing, a bit stronger. So we can go modify, and we're actually going to add a fillet. You can see how the fillets work there. And I'm going to select that edge there, and notice that it actually works out what I'm trying to do, and we'll select that edge there, and we can bring it out. So we add a bit of strength, a bit of pizzazz, F for fillet, and now we'll just set that to 5mm. Okay. And with that, you've created your first project.